Hey guys, it's Cherry and welcome back to my channel. So this year I had the privilege of participating in the Yale Young Global Scholars Program, or YYGS, which is an academically enriching summer program for high school students from around the world. Since applications are now open, I've received a couple of requests to share what I put in my application, so in this video I'm going to be telling you everything that I did to get into YYGS as an international student. Before I go on to the video, however, I just want to preface by saying that this is just my experience. Everyone is different, so please don't feel that you need to compare yourself to me or anyone else that you see on the internet. And overall, this video is just for educational purposes, so please don't feel disheartened. Now, the first section of your application is about the eligibility criteria, but when you get to section B, you'll need to indicate your session preferences. Overall, I indicated my first two, which were innovations in science and technology as my first choice, and solving global challenges as my second. In addition to indicating your preference, you'll also need to provide a 100-word explanation about why you chose those sessions. So in my response, I linked these preferences back to my personal interest, as well as what I wanted to study at uni. It's really important that you carefully read through each of the academic stream pages so that you can include that info in your response, as this will make sure that your answer is super personalized and informed, thereby helping you to stand out. In addition to explaining your session preferences, you also need to provide an answer for why you chose to apply to YYGS as a program and why you think you'd be a good fit for it. Before answering this question, you need to research and identify the things that are important to that specific uni and that program. For example, since YYGS prides itself in having one of the most diverse student cohorts, I really tried to emphasize this in my own response. So I talked about how I love meeting new people and learning about unique cultures, experiences, and perspectives to show that diversity is something that I also value. I also mentioned that this program would help me learn more about the American college experience, and specifically the Yale experience, which is not something that would have been possible for me otherwise as an international student. Finally, when discussing why I would be a good fit for YYGS, I emphasized my ability to collaborate with others, as well as my willingness to learn and grow as a leader and an individual. YYGS, as well as most other summer schools, are looking for students who have a growth mindset and can work well in group settings, so try to emphasize those qualities in this question. The second major component I want to talk about is Education Part 2, which is where you can upload any supplementary academic achievements as well as additional school transcripts. At the bottom of the page, there's also an optional section for any awards where you can upload up to 5 scholarships, honours, recognitions or fellowships. And this is what I did. So firstly, I talked about a STEM scholarship that I was the recipient of, which was valued at 1,500 Australian dollars. The second thing I mentioned was the fact that I'm a Kwong Li Dao Scholar, which is a recognition by the University of Melbourne that is given to the top 1 student from each school in my state. Next, I mentioned that I was one of 40 students from the state who was part of the Girls in Engineering and IT program, which is also run by the University of Melbourne. Next, I talked about how I was the top 3 finalists at a statewide Asian Studies debate competition. And finally, I received a year level award for an analytical essay that I wrote, so I mentioned that too. Overall, you can see that I've tried to showcase a broad range of achievements through this section to really add strength to my application. And once again, I recommend you really use this component because it gives you 5 extra opportunities to showcase your previous achievements. When I was applying for YYGS, we were asked to submit 2 recommendation letters. So I asked my chemistry teacher as well as my school principal at the time. I tried to be super strategic about this and choose people who had written previous letters of recommendation for me and who also knew me quite well. So for example, my first referee was my chemistry teacher, but I also wrote a research paper with the help of that person, so they were able to really see me both within and outside of a school setting, thus helping them to create a more holistic and personalized letter of recommendation. Some other tips that I have for finding your referees include starting early. It's super important to email your referees well before the application deadline so they have enough time to write a strong recommendation. Secondly, send your referees a copy of your resume. Whenever I reach out to anyone for a letter of recommendation, whether that's YYGS or any other program, I always provide a copy of my resume and the application if possible. This way they know exactly what activities I've been involved in, meaning they can incorporate that in their letter. This is especially important when asking someone like your principal, as they often encounter dozens of students on a weekly basis and they don't know everything that you've been doing, so it's nice to give them kind of a guiding list. Additionally, by providing a copy of your application, they'll be able to see what kind of vibe you want to convey and they can tailor the recommendation accordingly. It's also important to provide them with a bit of information about the program so they know what type of things to discuss. So for example, since I was applying for Innovations in Science and Technology, I indicated that to both of my referees so they could really talk about my involvement in STEM. Next, we have the activities list, and this is where you mention everything that you do outside of school. So things like leadership, sport, music, and volunteering. In this section, you can mention up to 3 activities, which isn't a lot, but this is a huge indication that they're looking for quality over quantity. For this section, I talked about the research paper that I published and spoke about it at a conference, as well as my YouTube channel and my involvement with rowing. When selecting my activities, I tried to think of what best complemented my chosen academic stream to demonstrate my passion for STEM outside of the classroom. At the same time, I also wanted to show the selection panel that I was well-rounded, so by including rowing, I was able to highlight my interests beyond just STEM. Additionally, I tried to be strategic in the way that I ordered my activities by mentioning the most important one first, and this gave me an additional 100 words to describe the significance of the research paper and the conference presentation. Finally, we have the essay component, and personally I think this is one of the most valuable sections of the application as it gives you a lot of freedom to share your story. Obviously the prompts differ year from year, but when I was applying, the prompt for the 400-word response was, please write about a time when your courage failed you. What happened? If you could go back in time and change it, what would you do differently, if anything? So in response to this question, I talked about a time during one of my badminton tournaments where my courage failed me. I talked about how that experience affected me and how I was able to later build up the confidence to address my concerns, which led to a positive outcome, which meant that my team ended up coming second in the state championships. So I deliberately chose this example as it highlights my involvement and achievements in badminton, thus further diversifying my application. Additionally, this experience was extremely significant to my personal growth as it taught me a lot about believing in myself, so that is something that I wanted to emphasize. Now for the fast takes, my first prompt was about a historical event in my country that I want to change, and for that I talked about the stolen generation, which was the systemic separation of Aboriginal Australian children from their families in an attempt to suppress the Indigenous culture. The second fast take was about what fictional character we felt that we most related to, and for this I said the Minions because we're both critical and creative thinkers who enjoy working with others and know how to have a good laugh. So obviously this second response wasn't super serious, but I think it's okay to be a bit cheeky and playful in your essays because it shows authenticity and originality. Now the prompt for the final essay I think is the same for all of the years, but it's about explaining something that has influenced us and how it's shaped us into who we are today. So for this response, I talked about what it was like living in the most lockdown city in the world, Melbourne. I discussed how it affected my relationships with my parents as well as my attitudes to the world around me. I finished my response by talking about the importance of focusing on the positives and how that mindset helped me develop an online platform called Discover STEM that aims to help high school students from around the world find STEM resources and programs, thus making STEM more accessible and appealing for all. In general, my advice for essay writing is to firstly read widely so you can expose yourself to as many writing styles as possible. You can find tons of free college essay examples online, so I recommend checking those out as the prompts and the writing style will mimic the ones that you kind of want to express in your YYGS application. Secondly, plan before you write, and this is particularly important for the fast takes as you only have 280 characters, so you need to be strategic. Finally, try and highlight personal growth in all of your essays. YYGS and other summer schools really appreciate a student who is able to reflect and improve based on the situations. So try and feature that in your essay. Now that brings me to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching and I hope you guys found this useful. If you have any specific questions, please feel free to leave them down below in the comment section and I'll do my best to help you guys out. Now don't forget to like, subscribe and comment for more videos and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!